In this video, we evaluate the integral from 0 to 1 x squared times the square root of 1 minus x squared dx. We use trigonometric substitution to solve this integral. So let x equals sine theta. So dx equals cosine theta d theta. Now for the limits of the integral, when x equals 0, we have theta equals 0, and when x equals 1, we have theta equals pi over 2. So now we have from 0 to pi over 2 sine square theta, and the square root we have 1 minus sine square theta, and dx equals to cosine theta d theta. This equals to, from 0 to pi over 2 sine square theta. 1 minus sine square theta is equals to cosine square theta, using the identity sine squared a plus cosine squared a equals 1. So we have here a square root of cosine square theta, cosine theta d theta. This equals to, from 0 to pi over 2 sine square theta. The square root of cosine square theta is cosine theta, and times cosine theta we have cosine squared theta d theta. Now this equals to, from 0 to pi over 2 sine squared theta, cosine squared theta, we can write it as sine theta cosine theta all squared d theta. Now also we use the trigonometric substitution, the trigonometric identity. Sine 2a equals 2 sine a cosine a. So we have sine a cosine a equals to 1 half sine 2a. So here we have from 0 to pi over 2 1 half sine 2 theta all squared d theta. This equals to, from 0 to pi over 2. Now 1 half squared is 1/4. So we get this out of the integral. Sine 2 theta squared is sine squared 2 theta d theta. And this equals to 1/4 from 0 to pi over 2. Now sine squared 2 theta equals to, using the trigonometric identity, cosine 2a equals 1 minus 2 sine squared a. So 2 sine squared a equals 1 minus cosine 2a, and 1 half 1 minus cosine 2a. So this equals to 1 half 1 minus cosine 2 theta d theta. This equals to 1/4 times 1 half equals to 1/8. From 0 to pi over 2 1 minus cosine 2 theta d theta. This equals to 1/8 theta minus the antiderivative of cosine 2 theta equals to 1 half sine 2 theta. So this is from 0 to pi over 2, and this equals to 1/8 theta pi over 2 minus sine 2 times pi over 2 is sine pi, which is 0. This is minus, we have here 0, the lower limit of the integral, minus sine 2 theta. When theta equals 0, we have also 0. So this equals to 1/8 times pi over 2, which equals 2 pi over 16, and this is the final answer.